We'll call today's Housing, Urban Development, and Zoning Committee meeting to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Cohn. Alderwoman Schweitzer. Alderwoman Keys. Vice Chair Sonnier. Alderman Browning.
Present.
Alderman Aldridge. Chair ClarkHubbard.
Here.
President Green. Present. Alderwoman Keys. Vice Chair Sonnier. Alderman Aldridge. We have 5 present.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We don't have any any minutes to approve. So what we're going to do is move this agenda around a little bit, kind of in context of some things that I heard during the budget committee hearings, out of respect for public that shows up to speak at these committee hearings during work hours this way that might have been inconvenienced and took off time, right, to be here. So first, if anyone is here in the public comment section that has signed in, we can swear you in. If you need to go ahead and speak so that you can get back to work on either Board Bill number 31 or, Board Bill number 31, please raise your hand, indicate that, again, out of respect for people's time. I wanted to go ahead and hold space for that earlier in the meeting so that we could take care of you then, or online. If that's your situation where you've taken off work to participate and have your voice heard, I want to go ahead and hold space for you as well. If you raise your hand, we can move you over and we can hear from you prior to the presentation. If that's not your situation, then we can go ahead and proceed and recognize President Green on Board Bill 31, and then we will have additional time for public comment as well. Going once. Anybody online raise their hand? Okay.
No one has raised their hand yet.
All right. Well, thank you. Okay, so with that, we'll recognize President Green on Board Bill 31.
Chair ClarkHubbard, but we do have someone here in the room who wants to speak, though.
Okay, did that person hear the announcement that I made about saying go ahead and speak, and then earlier on in the meeting, just out of respect for your time? Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Madam Chairwoman, members of the committee. I really appreciate the time and attention today to Board Bill 31 and being able to act pretty swiftly to get a committee meeting on this. So just to first start out with a little bit of an introduction, Board Bill 31 directs interest earned on the RAM settlement to support residents as they recover from last month's natural disaster. So right now we have a little over $30 million in interest that has been generated. So this bill proposes using that $30 million to provide residents aid now, and the relief package represents what the city can distribute quickly. In this moment of recovery effort, the board's goal must be deliver this bill to the mayor as soon as possible and get direct resources out to folks in our community as quickly as possible. I also want to recognize that we know that $30 million is not enough to satisfy all of the needs. This is a start, not the end, and I want to make that clear throughout this. As we got the FEMA designation yesterday, over the coming weeks and months, we will have a much better handle on what federal resources we are getting as the Missouri General Assembly moves forward with their deliberations. We'll have a much better understanding on what resources the state is providing, and I anticipate that we will have to, once we know what all those different funding sources are, that we will be back at this table discussing what more aid looks like for the north and west sides of our city. I also want to make clear that I know that city leaders are unified in our commitment to finding every available resource, whether it's public, private, philanthropic, to make sure that we can rebuild the areas of our city that have been hurt. The funding in this bill is also critical to meeting the city's collective obligation to access FEMA funding. Yesterday's announcement marks a new phase in our recovery effort, and I want to make sure that I thank both Mayor Spencer and the Board of Aldermen, as well as the governor and other elected officials who have advocated for survivors of the May 16th tornado and pushed to get the disaster declaration that we needed. And even though federal assistance is on the way, I also want to make sure that I continue to encourage our corporate and philanthropic community to stay in this with us, because it is going to take years to rebuild. I also want to make sure that I thank the grassroots organizations who have filled the gaps in essential aid distribution. Successful passage of this bill will allow the city to financially support the organizations who have been working since day one to make sure that residents have food, water, and essential supplies. And with that, I'll walk through the bill broadly and answer questions from committee members and then look forward to hearing from the public. Basically, Board Bill 31 creates the Tornado Relief and Recovery Fund, which will be established by the Comptroller's Office and maintained by the City Treasurer. The fund can accept additional funds through city appropriations, private donations, and other sources. So it will allow us to track all of the resources that we are giving out for recovery. Any interest earned on the fund will also stay in the fund and be used as relief money. And any reimbursements, say, FEMA reimburses us for some of the things that we have used this fund for, those reimbursements will go back into a sub-account within the Tornado Relief and Recovery Fund. The fund's purpose is to support residents in impacted areas by filling gaps in immediate need. Those gaps include home repair, temporary housing, storage for displaced residents and their belongings, financial help with insurance deductibles and legal aid, repairs to critical infrastructure that has been hurt, such as street, sidewalk, lighting, and addressing hazardous trees, support for nonprofit organizations providing staffing, shelter, supplies, aid, matching funds for state and federal disaster grants, and FEMA-eligible relief expenses. Exhibit A with the bill lists the neighborhoods and the parks that are eligible for relief money, and the mayor's office will administer the fund and provide a monthly report of expenditures and outcomes to the Budget Committee for the Board of Aldermen, as well as an annual report. This bill was created intentionally to prioritize flexibility. As time goes on, we know specific needs will evolve, and we want to make sure that we have that flexibility. For example, we know right now that there are folks who are living in unsafe shelters, that are living in tents on their property, and we have heard the need for modular homes or tiny homes. We know that we have some philanthropic partners that are coming forward with resources in that area, so it wouldn't make sense for the city to duplicate those efforts. We want to make sure that we are using this money to fill in the gaps that we are not receiving from state, federal, or philanthropic resources. We also know that state, federal, and private funding can fluctuate over time, and so we want to give the mayor's office the ability to be flexible and responsive in real time to those needs, as long as they fit within the framework of what I said earlier about supporting home repairs, temporary housing, storage for belongings, financial help in meeting deductibles, legal aid, all of the things that the bill is allowed to fund. I also want to point out that this fund is specifically designed to help residents. Impacted businesses are not in this round of allocation, although I anticipate that in the future we will take up funding specifically to support small businesses. And with the FEMA designation, we do know that other lines of funding through the Small Business Administration will be opened up to be able to support small businesses. But our goal in Board Bill 31 is to really make sure that we are stabilizing folks who are either displaced at the moment or living in unsafe structures or at risk of displacement because of the condition of their properties. And so Board Bill 31 is really intended to provide those stabilization funds, those emergency funding at this moment. And I do have one very small amendment that came from the Comptroller's office, and that I would like to go ahead and incorporate into the bill. It begins on page 6, line 2. After the words Exhibit A, the Comptroller has asked us to insert the following language that says that all contracts executed to expand tornado relief and recovery funds shall contain a provision explicitly stating that in the event of a violation of this ordinance or a determination of fund misuse, the dispersed funds shall be subject to clawback. So this is just a kind of a good governance measure to make sure in the event that something was not spent the way that it is supposed to, that we then have the authority to claw it back. So with that, I would ask that there be a motion made to adopt amendment number 1.
I move to adopt amendment number 1 on Board Bill number 31.
It was moved by Alderwoman Schweitzer and seconded by Alderman Cohn that we approve amendment 1 to Board Bill 31. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Cohn. Alderwoman Schweitzer. Alderwoman Keys. Vice Chair Sonnier.
Aye.
I need you to say aye with your camera on, Alderwoman. Alderman Browning.
Aye.
Alderman Aldridge.
Aye.
Chair ClarkHubbard.
Aye.
President Green.
Aye.
Alderwoman Keys. Vice Chair Sonnier.
Aye.
We have 7 aye votes.
All right, with that, we are now moving forward with Board Bill 31 as amended.
And with that, that concludes my remarks. If we want to turn it over for comment or to members of the committee.
Okay. Committee, did you want to hear from the public first, or did you all have comments you wanted to make, and then we follow back up? Okay. Is everyone in the room that signed up for public comment, put your name on the list for the clerk? Okay, everyone in the room that signed up, can you raise your right hand and swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Are there any public commenters online, Madam Clerk?
No one has raised their hand. I put the message out there. No.
Okay. All right, thank you. We can go ahead and proceed with the list.
Our first speaker in support is Joe Perk.
And when you come up, you can just state your name for the record and then go ahead with your 2 to 3 minute comments. Thank you.
Hello, this is to the board. I must give amends to all of you that I've seen out every day. May 16th was my 73rd birthday, and went out in a tornado. But what I'm here to say is I've traveled over the city in the most devastating parts of the city. When I see 85, 90-year-olds sitting outside their homes, laying up in their cars, eating from wherever, it hurts. What I'm asking, don't take too long to get these people off the street. The underinsured, the underinsured, non-insured, those people need help also. And what I'm asking out of that 30 million, get those people off these street corners It's been devastating to our city, but we're long and we're strong, and we will rise. And all I ask the board to do is whomever you allow to say disperse that money, keep your eyes on them and make sure that money go to the right people, because it's a disgrace. I left the funeral of Renee Lyles. She died in the 1300 block of Bayard. And it hurt to see her husband come out that basement with just his safe, and all their life is gone. Well, on my block, it didn't even look like a leaf fell, because I'm blessed. And all I'm asking from the board, disperse that money where it should go. I was at the Grill for Glory. I didn't like what I seen. I didn't like the fact that they could point out 4 or 5 people to get grills, and you got a whole truckload. I was denied a bottle of water at the Grill for Glory. And all I'm asking, pay close attention to the faces that say they want to disperse that money. Go to our grassroots organizations and allow them to.
Thank you.
Justina Kramer, undecided.
Hello, Justina Kramer. I'm in a whole bunch of wards. I've been here a few times. I was directly affected by the tornado, but like she said, can we please disperse these funds quickly, because it's getting worse. So now where we were affected by the tornado is getting worse because tarps are coming off. With this last storm, tarp came off. Now where we were dealing with no roof, now I'm dealing with no cabinets on the wall. Ceilings have come down, walls are soaking wet, hardwood floors are destroyed, because now the tornado, now the new storms have destroyed the property even more. So now my damage is more extensive, and with more storms coming in, will only get worse. So people who have already sustained damage as they go on with the storms will sustain more damage as weather progresses. So those who don't have insurance or even have insurance are having to be reassessed because weather changes as we go. So the need is going to change. Also, we do have to get these people off of the street. It's getting hotter. The bugs are getting worse. People are going to have to go back to their regular daily lives. Support is going to pull back. It's always like a funeral. Everybody's there for you. The repast happens, and then people stop calling, people stop coming, and then you just left with the people that you saw at the beginning of it all. So we do have to look out for that. And we also have to understand that this is just the beginning, and there is more RAMS money. The allocation towards the north side was minuscule to begin with when it came to what was proposed in January to be allocated to the north side. So we do need to pay more attention to what needs to be allocated when we go to allocating more in the budget towards that RAM money. So we need to keep that in mind when we're looking further into delegating that money and where it needs to go and how we need to use that. We also need to come up with a plan on making sure that the money doesn't go to the hands of those people who are going to disperse it at their will, but also making sure that the contractors are reputable. I had a bad contractor. I was out of my house for 4 years for a fire that I should have been back at my house and for the end of the year, which is how I ended up in the tornado. This contractor took my money. I'm paying for that house out of my pocket. It hurts. Financially, emotionally, and my family. So please do not allow these people to be hurt again by a tragedy and then a contractor who is out here just to steal money. And it's all they got. Thank you.
Thank you.
Christopher Gladney.
Good morning, everyone. Again, I'm Christopher Gladney. I'm the president of the Northside Independent Neighborhood Association. And I want to put in context about what I'm about to say by citing one of our purposes, which is to promote and protect the welfare, health, and safety of members of the neighborhood through collective action, communication, and collaboration.
Get a little closer to the microphone.
Okay. So I want to say that the welfare of our neighborhood is in major danger, with the hardest hit areas on the north side really being concentrated in the areas of the Greaterville, Kings Way, East, and Fountain Park neighborhoods. But additionally, we have had substantial damage in the O'Fallon and Fairground neighborhoods, the North Riverfront area, and other neighborhoods have been affected. But essentially, it's the Black community that took the biggest hit here. You know, and I witnessed the destruction after the May 16 tornado. I saw entire buildings collapsed on Newstead Avenue. I've seen the fallen trees that were blocking major thoroughfares and side streets, the devastation on the faces of people who lost everything. And I especially want to, send out, heartfelt, condolences to the 7 families that lost their loved ones as a consequence of this tornado. And I've suffered too. My apartment was damaged from all this, as well as a lot of my neighbors on Redbud Avenue. But I also saw the collective action as the Black community came alive and were working together to clear the streets of the fallen trees and the debris from the damaged buildings, helping to clear the sidewalks and backyards of more fallen trees and bricks. And also, our neighborhood association helped in participating with helping to cook hot meals for the community, helping to gather donations and get those donations of much needed supplies to the people, especially as the power was out for days and days and days, where people's food spoiled. A lot of money people spend on groceries. And I have to say, not once, but twice, when buildings that were red tagged also had their powers turned off again. Now, with that said, that $30 million would be a good start towards repairing our homes and our businesses. And quite frankly, it's not enough. It's been said before, but I have to say it again, it's not enough. I really feel that the Black community of the North Side needs the full $290 million of the RAM settlement money, including the $30 million. And even still, that's not enough. It's been said that's $1.6 billion in damage. And I've even read elsewhere that it's up to $2 billion in damages on the North Side.
Mr. Gladney, that's your 3 minutes.
3? Okay, well, I just want to say that the Black community needs that money, and it needs that money now. And it needs to go to the small nonprofit and to the people, and not the big corporate nonprofit organizations that have constantly gotten this money, and we don't see the results of it. We don't see the benefits of it in the community. The welfare and the health and safety of our neighborhoods has to be paramount. So I know my 3 minutes are up, but we need that 30 million plus more, because the people can't wait. People don't know where to go to, where to turn to, and temporary fixes aren't going to do it. It's not going to do it.
Karen Greer, undecided.
Hello, everybody. I am a resident and business owner of the Elevated 11th Ward. My alderwoman is Laura Keys. I'm a business owner. I am the vice president of NINA. NINA was formed as a result of a lot of backlash where blockage was created for businesses to expand and start in North City, St. Louis. May 16th was devastating for us again. We have survived the pandemic. We've survived benign neglect, and we still look like we're being neglected. We're getting the donations and the resources that we need right now. Like the young lady said, it's for right now. We need this ongoing. And just like our elder here stated, We need it right now, and we want to make sure that our unhoused people, and you sit at the seat of that table, get the housing and the necessary things that they need. They did the tagging on my block a couple of days ago, and a senior that lives next door to me is one I'll look out for. He's like my dad. And he texts me and asks, can you be my adopted daughter? A lot of our seniors don't have the representation that live next door to them that can help fight and say what is needed for them. They put a red tag on his house. He has a tenant who is also an elderly lady that is on oxygen. What happens when you're talking about the medical needs of the people? When you're talking about swiftly turning their power off, swiftly turning it right back on, when you find that they need that power, and what extensive damages that they had is surface. They're not going up on that roof and taking a real good look to say that this property don't really need the red tag. Some of them do, but a lot of them don't. And my heart went out to him. And so I made some calls. I even called our alderwoman. I called a few people down in inspection. They said, make a CSB report, put it in swiftly, let them know what's going on, ask for another inspection. But what about the people that don't know those steps? Okay, they're getting some steps on the news and through word of mouth, but a lot of it is not getting out there. Another topic that I want to talk about as far as the delay, making sure that we get this swiftly. I'm still a business owner. I'm still dealing with the impact of the COVID pandemic fund, the 12.5, or the however much we were supposed to be receiving. We have not received none of that yet. And still, I'm an impacted resident and business owner still waiting from the pandemic to now another disaster. How many things do we have to go through, and how many fights and battles do we have to fight to say we need this done right now? We don't need the pennies that's dropped in the bucket. We need the whole bucket. We've been sitting on neglect for so many years that ain't nobody paying attention to what's actually happened down to the people that can't speak up and come down here and speak up for themselves. So you got the rest of us that's fighting on the front lines and the back lines. They don't need the acknowledgement that they're doing their part, but do y'all part and help out. And I mean swiftly. We don't need the pennies, we need all of it. And that's all I got to say.
Our next speaker is Ruby Gittleson.
Whoops. Hi, my name is Ruby Gittleson, and I live in the Central West End, but I was in North St. Louis volunteering under the leadership of the Black Power Blueprint when the tornado hit on May 16th. So I was in an area that looked like the tornado had hit already before the tornado hit. And then it hit after that. I was in an area where the Black community lives on 16 cents for every dollar that the white community lives on. And I saw what happened in that neighborhood, and then that night I went home to my community, which also had down trees and blocked streets, but there was already people out there with chainsaws, contractors were already there. Within hours, within days, everything was cleaned up, looking like what it used to look like before the tornado hit. There were fleets of trucks on my street. There was 500 people from Texas and Oklahoma who were trained electricians and tree people that came. There was a total disparity. The Black community in North St. Louis, as people have already said, did not get the assistance from the city. The community came together and made it happen. The community dealt with the wires, the downed trees. The people fed each other. That is what happened in the North St. Louis, but the city absolutely, once again, after decades, still continued to ignore that community. And, I just want to say that the tornado has a devastating effect And there just was a study that came out from NPR saying that a tornado can affect not just people for a day or an hour, but it has generational effect. It is a traumatic event. And, I also want to say that the $30 million of the Rams interest, the interest on the Rams settlement is not enough for North St. Louis. The whole Rams money needs to go to North St. Louis. The whole ARPA money that the city's been sitting on needs to go to North St. Louis. That is an area that has been starved deliberately by the city for decades, and now is the time when it needs to be rectified. And we can see the importance of the Black community, of what Black Power Blueprint has done, bringing people together. I'm sorry? Okay, thank you so much. There's places on the list like Baden that is not on the list of areas to get money. Yes, use the interest, but like I said, in conclusion, all the money, the city has over $1 billion in surpluses and money it's been sitting on for years. That money needs to go to North St. Louis to rectify the conditions. Thank you.
Kenji, maybe?
Good morning, it's Ikinge Maele. And I want to just echo the sentiments of everyone that has come before me. $30 million is nothing in comparison to what the North Side needs, what it deserves, and what it requires after years and years and years of neglect. It's been documented that the Team 4 plan was in effect long before this tornado. Okay, and this bill will be nothing more than a Band-Aid. As someone who has experienced, this is the first tornado I've ever been in. The city has the ability now to act swiftly, act quickly, and repair its residents of the North Side immediately. You've heard that there are areas that were not even represented in the study in terms of dollars that are going to be issued out. And if it is an even split, if you will, that means everybody's not going to get what they need all at one time. There's $86 million. Get it all. Get it all and give it to the people. Just experiencing the aftermath, it has been the people that have jumped in to repair each other, to help each other. This money, again, is just a Band-Aid. Let's do the whole thing. Let's get it all. People are still suffering the travesty with the whole power turning on and turning off has been traumatic enough for people. And there are people right now, myself included, that has had to experience this arbitrary decision that was made to determine who should have a red tag on their home or who should have a yellow or who should have a green. This bill, again, has the opportunity to be able to we don't need a Band-Aid, we need a cure. And the cure is all of the money. So I urge everyone that has the opportunity or has the ability to make the decision, do it all. Why get a little, get a lot? That's what the North Side, the entire North Side, not just a part of it, a piece of it, but the entire North Side deserves. Thank you.
Jay Ozier.
I'd like to thank you, Madam Chairman, for the meeting in today, but I don't appreciate you butchering up my name. But anyway, and I will return the favor soon. But anyway, I do truly thank y'all for holding this hearing, whether you can receive public comment. It is very important. And I hope that this is not the last one in regards to the tornado, and that if some of them can be held in North St. Louis, schools or wherever we can use, so that people that are not so likely to come down to a city hall. The most expensive thing that a person can purchase is a home sweet home. How? Ooh, that right got a little. I would like to know also, where could I get information about how many houses that are actually been demolished from the tornado, and also those that have been condemned. For those whose home has been demolished, we need a real plan to get them back into their home or new home, as well as those who have been homes that have been condemned. As mentioned earlier, that many of our residents are uninsured or underinsured. And we know that the insurance companies are going to attempt to do the least that they can do. That has been a track record. And we also know that this is going to be an opportunity for a land grab. We know what happened in Mill Creek, Old Compton Hill over there by St. Louis University. And as mentioned before, the Team 4 plan. Those that rent are going to need permanent housing. And I would appreciate if we, as mentioned before, to revisit this. I think we need to go forward with this bill as it is, but we definitely need to revisit it because we need big money. And we want to have part of our plan as a way of those who have been devastated by the tornado to ensure that they are able to return to the city, because we don't need to lose population, and they deserve it. They've held this city up, this Rams money. Much of that money some of that money, the Rams and these stadiums and so forth, have used all kinds of tax incentive, tax rebates, and et cetera, et cetera. Money that has been taken from our public schools to support millionaires getting more millions. And thank you.
Our next speaker is Kenneth McGlam.
Good morning. I would like to touch a little bit on how this money would benefit our community. I live in the Goodfellow Wells area, and it looks like a storm has already hit our area. Now, the tornado didn't come over there where we live, but the houses are decrepit, falling down, the demolition need to be picked up, and we have a real serious substance abuse problem out there because, You know, when people don't have, it causes depression, and when depression, if you don't have a God to believe in, you're going to drink, shoot dope or something. I used to do it before I met the Lord. But fortunately, I do have a roof over my head, but I look around in my area, they sleeping in vacos, they sleeping out. It's not enough money to help support the homeless people around there, and most of them already got mental health problems, and so when all of this stuff come up, I mean, even though it didn't hit that area, it's affecting everybody in the city. So we do need some help over there where I'm at. I'm with the ARCA Safety Center. I'm the CEO, the founder. We do substance abuse and people help people with mental health disorders. Thank you.
The final speaker, Zakia. Zaki.
All right, thank you. Yes. Yes, first and foremost, good morning to you, everyone. My name is Zaki Baruti. I represent an organization, Universal African Peoples Organization, that has a number of members in the city, as well as I'm the co-chair of a grouping of organizations that's called the Community Justice Coalition. I'm here, first of all, I had asked to be last. And I wanted to be last because I just wanted to hear the cries of the people. And I'm sure y'all have heard the cries of the people. And I'm here also just to say I agree with what everybody has already stated earlier. But also I'm here to say to you as a challenge, each of you. And that challenge is to be a hero and a shero. And how can you be that? You be that when you understand history. The history of the oppression of black people here in the state of Missouri, going all the way back to the Dred Scott decision. The history of benign neglect on the north side, Team 4. I'm challenging you to be a hero, to be a shero, and say to America, Missouri is the show me state. And we're showing by this most magnificent giving of our heart to the people who are suffering. The $276 million. This is a good start. So on the record, let me say it's a good start. It's a start. Long awaited, but it's a start. I challenge you, and that's all I have to say. Be a hero. Be a shero for the nation. And go down in history and be blessed by God. That's all I got to say. Oh, and one other thing, I'm sorry. As far as community meetings, and I'm a former educator, and when you were up here, president of the Board of Aldermen, I was trying to listen intently, but, you know, I'm kind of aging. And just as a configuration, because it's important for people to see racial expressions. And I've been at other different city council meetings where people can see the person who's speaking, because I was really trying to listen intently to what you were presenting, okay? That's just as a kind recommendation. And the Community Justice Coalition, we'll be putting together a forum to invite you there into the community, and we'll be in contact. Thank you.
All right, making sure that everyone that wanted to speak had the opportunity to speak.
Can I say one thing? Just one. Just one. The Team 4 plant was designated in 1970. The Team 4 plan was put on the table in 1973. Mayor Tucker, Mayor Cervani, Mayor Conway, and Mayor Shameem. These are the Team 4 plans. And everything these people have implemented as a plan from 1973 is still on the table. Don't let these people trick you.
Thank you.
The Team 4.
Yes, ma'am.
Tucker, Cervani, Shameem, and Conway. And that's what's going on. Leave our bricks alone. Old North St. Louis. Do not take our brick. If we catch you stealing our brick, it's going to be hell to pay.
Thank you, ma'am. We're going to start with our colleagues, Alderman Cohn.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. I was so enthralled with my constituent over there. Yeah. Always good to see you. Are you asking if we have questions about the bill or the amendment?
Yes, the bill.
Okay. The president and I were just having a conversation. Now that we've been declared by FEMA and by the government, or declared the emergency, and so I just want to make sure that the language in the bill mirrors what's in the state and federal declarations, and that it specifies language related to the severe storms, straight line winds, tornado, and flooding. And I have two amendments that I will call out to the committee here in a moment. But the president has agreed to adopt both of these as friendly amendments to the bill. The second one would be amending Section 3C to include language that would essentially mean that the city of St. Louis would fast track verification and aid eligibility requirements for residents and property owners within the city of St. Louis, with a prioritization given to the impacted areas as defined in Exhibit A, which was the intent of the bill. So just to make sure that we have some clarifying language there so that folks that may have had their homes impacted by those storms still remain eligible, but we are giving prioritization to the areas that were hardest. So I'll be emailing those out in just a moment, but okay. So I was just saying, I'm sorry, I don't know how much louder I can speak. Okay.
Right there.
So I'm talking into a microphone, y'all. So I was just saying that I have two amendments that I've run past the sponsor of the bill. She's considering them friendly amendments that would include language in the bill, because as of right now, it's just related to the storm and tornado, not the straight line winds, flooding, et cetera, that were language that was specific in the state and federal designation. So to make sure that the language in the bill mirrors what the federal and state emergency declarations were for, and then secondary to that, including language in Section 3C related to fast tracking and aid eligibility requirements, that a prioritization is given to the impacted area, but we're not limiting it only to the impacted areas that are enumerated there, because there are other areas within the city that were impacted by the storms as well. So, which is the intent. It's not to, we still want to make sure that the areas that were hardest hit get prioritization, but that if there are areas adjacent to or in other parts of the city, one of my colleagues here and I, one of my constituents was one of the ones, one of the deaths in the city, but that death occurred in Carondelet Park, which was in the first ward as a result of tree damage in Carondelet Park. There are many parks throughout the city that also suffered damage from these severe storms as well. So just making sure that we're prioritizing efforts within the most impacted areas, but where we need to also address concerns as well are not excluded from the bill. So as I mentioned earlier, I have those being drafted at the moment. I'll send them out to the committee in a moment.
Thank you, Alderman Cohn. Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Thank you so much. Am I being heard by everyone? Just nod. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Thank you, Madam President, for being here and discussing this bill. I am excited to see money moving from the Rams interest to the, one of the biggest needs we have in our city. I remember when we were talking about the Rams bill in the last session, we talked about holes that might happen because of what we're dealing with at a federal level and the funding that may or may not come. So it means a lot that we had this moving before we knew if the federal money was coming, if we were going to get any help. But I think that the holes will still exist even with those funds expended. And think it's very thoughtful to put this amount forward, addressing the most urgent needs, knowing that our city has so many needs that didn't go away with this tornado and were just exacerbated by the tornado. And some of those things are mentioned in this bill, some aren't. But I think that this is a really good way of using these funds, and I'm excited to both be a co-sponsor on this bill and to support it today, and look forward to further conversation in impacted areas later this week. So thank you for being here, and I appreciate the time that you all took to put this together. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderwoman Schweitzer. Alderman Brownie? Sorry, I keep doing that. Alderwoman Keys?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no questions, but I would like to thank the members of the community who came out and have made themselves very clear. And we appreciate your candor. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderwoman Keys. Alderman Brownie?
I actually think Alderwoman Sonnier is Sonnier.
We always go to her last as vice chair.
Thank you. Well, I'll just start by saying, echoing my colleagues' sentiments and saying I am proud to be a co-sponsor of this bill as well. Want to make sure that we get people the help they need and as quickly as possible. Absolutely heard what was said by the people that came here to testify today, that we want money gets to the people who need it. And that we do it as quickly as possible. We hate to see people who have lost their homes, lost their valuables, lost sometimes their lives because of this storm. We're glad that the damage wasn't worse, that we see that people have picked up the pieces and trying to put their lives back together, but there are many who are still struggling, and this money needs to get to them as quickly as possible. So I'm not going to waste any more time talking. Let's get this moving.
Thank you, Alderman Brownie. Alderman Aldridge?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I want to thank President Green, Mayor Spencer for working collaboratively to bring this together and understanding the need is now. Also, as Alderwoman Keys echoed, I want to thank the community for coming out and having their voice heard. There will be another opportunity this Thursday at 5:30 p.m. I don't have the address, but I know one of my colleagues will mention it, but we'll be right in the most impacted areas where people need to hear about this information. And that meeting was definitely strategic to make sure before we voted out that we also go to the community to hear from individuals so that they can weigh in on this. I mean, I just echo everything that my colleague said. I'm also glad to be a co-sponsor when this storm happened. One of the things I brought to President Green of like, hey, we need to do something with the Rams' interest, and her and her team quickly responded on it and, reached out to the mayor, and here we are. Like the president said, this is just the start. This is just the start of hopefully more money to come. The State House is working on legislation. This week, the House is in to bring $100 million to St. Louis, as well as we recently heard the federal government bring in some federal funds. But this is just a start, and I agree with a lot of folks that have spoke earlier that, honestly, North St. Louis was already, I would say, on life support. They've been disinvested in for years, have not had the support they need, and then this tornado comes and really devastate people's lives to the maximum. So I'm glad for all my colleagues up here and ones that are not up here who have signed on as a co-sponsor, understanding this is an urgent need. It is not a lot, but we must do something locally from the city of St. Louis. And again, thank you, President Green, Mayor Spencer, and all the co-sponsors on the bill that is trying to get some funds out to the door as quick as possible for the people who need it. And I also want to thank the alders from the impacted area who I think voices really helped shape this legislation to make sure that certain eligible needs in this bill, from being boots on the ground, are in this legislation, so that these eligible needs and things that need to be in the bill, they heard directly from their community, and it is in this legislation. So to the alderman from the 9th, the alderwoman from the 10th, and the alderwoman from the elevated 11th, thank you for your leadership and voice in shaping and crafting this legislation.
Thank you, Alderman Aldridge. Vice Chair Sonnier.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I first just want to thank all of the community members for coming out today. I hope that you all tell more neighbors about the hearing that we have on Thursday, especially because that one will be right in the community, and I think it's important that we hear from you all as much as possible. And I know you have anything else that you could do. As far as I'm concerned, this is my job to be present at these types of things. And this should be, I know for a fact, this is a shared priority amongst all of us. So thank you all for coming out. Of course, I want to thank all of the community organizations that have done work to kind of meet the immediate need while legislative and bureaucracy things were being done. And I absolutely want to, thank President Board of Alderman Megan Green for her work on this bill and making sure there's a board, whether we special sessions, whether we needed extra hearings, that those things are coming. And I definitely want to thank the mayor's office, and also always, every time we have these hearings, I'm always going to give a special shout out to the impacted alders. Again, every time that I just go volunteer and even get a whiff of what you all are dealing with, my heart goes out to y'all, my respect goes out to you all, but so many of you all's constituents will be like, my alderwoman is this person, and tell me about something where you all have showed up. So thank you to you all. And then I think just along the conversations today, I specifically waited to add myself as co-sponsor of this bill because I wanted to hear what you all had to say and get some public input before I officially put my name on it. And I do want to just urge you to make sure that as we're having these conversations, the things that you're uplifting, you continue to do. A strong concern that I have is displacement and predatory developers. And I think that you guys need to keep raising that mantle. I think you need to be encouraged, the Board of Aldermen, to be talking about long-term displacement policies that can protect communities as we rebuild them and make sure that you all are the ones who have an opportunity to come back, whether it's Paul McKee or several other names of folks who we know that have their hands out and think that honestly, right now, St. Louis is ripe for the taking. I think it's really important that you guys stay present and keep uplifting those things and make sure that you're in every guardrail that we can put in place, every way that we can verify who is doing this, and every way that we can really center community-oriented developers, whether it's community development corporations, people who don't necessarily just have for-profit interests, but are really thinking about the city. And, that's obviously incredibly important because the cost to rebuild these homes are going to be higher than sometimes the cost of the original value of the home. And that will create a door open for vultures and for people who are predators to come in. So it's certainly important that we use every public dollar that we can, but that those other guardrails are there. And I also hope that as the public has these conversations, I know we're talking about the tornado, and I think that's important, but I think whether you're talking about the unprecedented floods that we had in 2022, whether you're talking about the unprecedented snowstorm that we had and now unprecedented tornado, we are having a global climate crisis. And every storm that we have is becoming unprecedented. And I hope you raise to city leaders that we need to both walk and chew bubblegum, and we need to talk about immediate needs, but also how can we get infrastructure set up that as we continue to have natural disasters, we're able to quickly move these resources and stand in the gap so that it's not just a burden on community, not just a burden on us. And there's also, again, these guardrails that can protect how we rebuild our city. So, I really appreciate getting all of the feedback that I have. I've appreciated just hearing you all's voices today, and I just cannot stress enough how important it is that you keep being vocal, how important it is that you keep showing up and telling us about the history of our city and telling us about benign neglect and telling us where you want to see your dollars to go and telling us who you do and don't want to develop and rebuild the communities. That's really important. So I just want to encourage you all to continue to do that. I look forward to working with the President of the Board of Aldermen's office and other offices about how we can put some of these things in place as we move forward. The only question I had was just for President Green. I know it's a common question in community. If you could just talk a little bit about how we'll go about verifying who folks that are underinsured and are uninsured are, and how we'll make sure that they'll get access to these resources. I know that you've obviously there's been a lot of emails and a lot of communication, but I just want to make sure we're sharing that information with the public as much as possible so that you all know we are aware that that's going to be another struggle. And now that FEMA is activated, that's a great sign, but just hoping President Green can speak a bit more to that.
Sure. So what the board bill does is it gives the mayor's office the authority to determine how funds are spent, including issuing RFPs. So we could be issuing RFPs to various nonprofits, And we've already been working with the mayor's office to be able to get those up and active shortly after this board bill passes so that we can, and I think the idea is to issue those RFPs on a rolling basis instead of saying that we have to wait 30 days or 60 days or 90 days, accepting a rolling basis so that we can start to quickly get funds out to organizations that are helping with anti-displacement work and that are helping with bridging those gaps. In some areas, it may be that the city is the entity that is doing the work and it is not RFPing it out. I could see with the helping folks meet their deductibles, that very well may be something that DHS takes on. And we do that directly from the city rather than having to contract that out. And so a lot of those conversations are being had right now about what's going to be contracted out, what house. But the goal for all of it is to do it quickly. So making those determinations through looking at both our internal capacity to do things quickly versus the external capacity to outsource something to get it done fast.
Thank you. And can you, I feel like you've kind of said this on some of the calls we have, but can you speak to just the legislation and specifically anything in it that you think does help make sure that community-oriented developers such as community development corporations and others are going to be, prioritized and centered as we go about? Obviously, the bill covers a lot of things, but it begins to touch the hem of some of the longer-term building things.
Sure. It's eligible uses 2E is providing capital for initiatives led by nonprofit organizations that address gaps in resident-focused tornado response and recovery. And specifically, it says that it could be used for staffing, temporary shelters, warehouse needs, technology tools, any other good or service that those nonprofit organizations need to do in order to give aid, support folks from being displaced, and keep folks in their homes.
Thank you. I don't have any further questions. I would just like to make a motion to thank.
So move.
It was moved by Vice Chair Sonnier, seconded by Alderwoman Keys. Call for previous roll with no objections that we in bank. Board Bill 31 is amended. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We're going to do them next. All right, all in aye, so we move forward with that. And was that you? Okay. With that, we'll recognize a motion to accept amendment number 2.
Second.
It's moved by Vice Chair Sonnier, seconded by Alderwoman Keys with a call for previous roll that we accept amendment number 2 to Board Bill 31. All in favor?
Aye.
We said in previous roll, so. Okay, I'll accept the motion for amendment number 3.
Excuse me. Who requested previous roll?
I did. Rasheen.
Noted.
And then I just made a motion to accept the second amendment. Third amendment.
Second.
Okay. It's moved by Vice Chair Sonnier, seconded by Alderman Cohn, that we accept amendment number 3 with a call for previous roll by Alderman Aldridge with no objections. So we've accepted now amendments 2 and 3 and moving forward. President Green, if you want to close this conversation to move forward to Thursday's conversation on Board Bill 31 as amended.
Just want to close by thanking the committee, thanking all the co-sponsors, thanking you for embanking it. Want to also make sure that I thank Alderman Aldridge for lighting the fire under us and coming and saying, hey, we need to get some money out the door quickly, and thankful for the mayor's office for when I called them and they said, yes, let's do it. And I said, great, let's draft something. I want to thank Alderwoman Keys and Alderman Browning and all the impacted alders for giving their feedback to this, making sure, Alderwoman ClarkHubbard, making sure that everybody's constituents are heard in this. I want to thank the community organizations who also gave us kind of that list of things that needed to be in this piece of legislation. And what I think was really amazing about it is the fact that what impacted alders came up with, what community organizations came up with, and what residents in the impacted areas came up with was all the same thing. And I think that means that, we are at a good starting place, and I will continue to say it, that this is the start, not the finish. And we know that it is going to take all of us for probably years, unfortunately, to rebuild. But I know that we're all committed to be here for the long term. We're committed to the resources it takes to rebuild and recover, and to make sure that in doing so, we are developing in a way that is resident-led, that we are developing in a way that makes sure that the north side, the west side of our city that already saw disinvestment prior to the will not only be restored to how it was, but will be restored to better than it was. And I think that has to be the goal. And when we hear this $1.6 billion figure being thrown out for the damage, we have to remember that that is to restore the north and west sides of our city back to where they were pre-tornado. And we do not want to simply be restoring neighborhoods to a disinvested level. We be restoring it to a level where they can thrive. And so that is going to be the long work over many months, many years. For folks who are here, we do have another hearing coming up, the Child and Family Empowerment Center on Kennerly in the Ville on Thursday night at 5:30. We intend to do any final amendments, vote this bill out that evening so that it can go to the board on Friday and be second read and perfected. And then we are calling a special meeting of the Board of Aldermen on Tuesday in order to get the legislation passed. Because we recognize the urgency. We want to make sure that we're able to get this out, signed by the mayor, and set up all of the processes we need to set up to get this into the hands of residents as quickly as possible. So we have a very tight timeline. Most of the time you do not see legislation pass through the board in a little over a week, but we have, I think since this storm, showed the community that we're willing to step up, call as many meetings as we have to, expedite things that need to be expedited so that we can get this aid out where it belongs quickly. So thank you so much, and I'll see everybody on Thursday.
Thank you so much, President Green. A couple other things I want to add my gratitude, echo my gratitude for, as well as you all, first and foremost, showing up, because without your testimonies, and these are testimonies, then we would not be able to make the decisions and move in the progress that we can down here respectively, right? Without hearing from you. So these hearings are important. Everybody knows I'm always asking, encouraging, some might call begging the public to come and speak at these hearings, because again, it's invaluable. Us being able to hear from you. We want to recognize and thank Missouri State Representative Kimberly Ann Collins, right, for holding and creating a space for us to be in community that was referenced here, not just by our colleagues, but you all today, the importance of that. And that Child and Family Empowerment Center at 4145 Kennerly Avenue, zip code is 63113. That's 4145 Kennerly Avenue. That hearing, as well as all of our hearings, you can show up in person, you can send emails, or you can show up virtually in Zoom and participate, making sure, again, that your voices are heard. I also want to note not only the speed of this legislation and others, but I think it's also want to uplift that this legislation has not only the co-sponsorship of us, our President of Board of Aldermen, Megan Green, but also the co-sponsorship of our Mayor Spencer. And I'll also recognize that while she can't be a co-sponsor, she's always present, either herself on the ground with this, our comptroller, but our comptroller has representation in the room today. All of these people will be key if you understand the roles that people play in moving legislation. And that's important, I think, in educating the public to know the roles that each individual representative plays in their respective places in moving legislation. That way, even in your advocacy, you're not going the wrong way, right? Because you don't want to stand up and talk to somebody about one thing that they can't do, but they know the person that can do that. So again, educating and understanding you all on the roles that people play and how we move things forward is always important for me as well. With that, we'll move forward in our agenda to discussion item number 1 and recognize Alderman Aldridge on the review and discussion of the application form for the tenants in tornado disaster impacted areas that was outlined in Board Bill 23 and related disaster legislation. This is a continuance of our conversation last week.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman and members of the HUD's committee. Today, I present to you the application that will be used for the Impacted Tenants Fund legislation that we passed a few weeks ago to help individuals by updating that language that you, Madam Chair, had carried a few years ago, but updating that language to make sure that we also include individuals that have been impacted by the tornado devastation. So last week, some of my colleagues had some really good questions, concerns, and I think items that make this application even stronger. I want to thank Director Valerie Russell from Human Services, also Casey Millbrook from the Mayor's Office. I probably said her last name wrong, but Casey from the Mayor's Office, and my colleagues for the input on this. So a few updates that we made, and also Employment Connections, who plan to be the vendor for the application, also made some input, as well as I want to thank the President's Office, Cecilia, Ms. Gormindia, for weighing in and getting this application updated in a speedy amount of time. Hopefully this committee could pass out. So some new updates to the application. At the top was one of the recommendations for Employment Connection of the applicant number and the date that the application was signed. One of the other concerns that Alderwoman from the elevated 11th Ward brought up was demographics of the individuals who will be applying for this, which you will be able to see on page 3. On page 1 is the generic information that we covered last week, applicants' information so far as a first name, last name, their email, phone number, or alternative phone number. And then also adding applying for aid due to either building being condemned or the natural disaster. And we also asked them put the date of that disaster as well as the impacted address. On page number 2, we're asking for either the landlord, property owner, or landlord or property manager, or the property owner's information so that they can be contacted. Again, on page 3 is how much in the household annual income and monthly there is, what is their source of income, number of people who live in the household, and anybody that is under the age of 18, as well as one of the, again, recommendations that Alderwoman Keys asked for demographics. And then on page 4 is the reporting process. So have you found a place to live, so that we can know if they had already found a place to live, so that we know what that amount that we'll be giving them for their new lease at the market rate value. And then the last page, page 5, was a suggestion that Alderman Cohn from the 3rd Ward brought up of making sure that we have, towards the bottom of it, that we have state and local statutes to make sure that we're not discriminating against anybody, as well as that they're not preventing or providing any fraudulent activities. Again, I would say that at the end of the day, we tried to capture as much information possible on the application without also making the application too much where it would be almost a barrier for people to be able to complete, as well as getting the input from Department of Human Services, as well as Employment Connections, the people that's going to administer this application. So thank you to my colleagues for that input. I know we put a hold on it. And I also want to echo that this program, even if we pass this application today, this program is not set up. So I know we have a lot of people from the media here, as well as the public, the city, Employment Connection, the mayor's office, Department of Human Services is working around the clock to set this program up. And as soon as this program is set up, hopefully in the next few weeks, I know we will, at the Board of Aldermen, be putting out information through our channels to make sure that people can be able to start to apply for this funding if they have been impacted by the tornado. With that, Madam Chairwoman, I will open up for any questions.
Thank you. Alderman Cohn. Alderwoman Schweitzer.
No questions right now. Alderman Aldridge answered all of my questions before, and I look forward to moving forward.
Alderwoman Keys.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have any questions. Thank you for hearing what I was saying about demographic information. I appreciate this incantation of the new application. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Alderman Browning.
Thank you. I have no questions. Just Aldridge for leadership on this and helping get it together.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Sonnier.
Thank you. Just a thank you to Alderman Aldridge for working on this. I did have a question about the submission of documents that the current signed lease. It says that there are two documents that have to be had: a current signed lease for the unit that has been impacted, and then valid ID or passport or driver's license. I just wanted to lift up that sometimes lower income, longer term tenants don't have a currently signed lease because they're operating on assumed month-to-month basis after the official term of the lease is in it. And I want to make sure that all of the, impacted tenants are able to benefit from. So I just wonder if that might be, a barrier. I know it's ongoing and it's going, but there are just, a lot of times, especially if someone has stayed in a place for 5 years or 10 years, and again, especially in lower income or with smaller like property management companies, they're not operating with like a currently signed lease. The last lease that might be on record might be from 2015, 2016, and they're just kind of on a month-to-month basis. So I was just curious, how would it work for someone within that framework in that kind of situation? Would they still be able to access the funds?
Yes, and that's a good question, and I appreciate you flagging that. They still be able to access it, and after talking with the Employment Connections, they will go off of the most current lease that they do have, understanding that people may be month to month, and understanding that with being month to month, you may not have a most updated lease. Like you say you lived in a unit for 4 years and you signed your first 2 years, but maybe the landlord or property owner didn't make you do a lease 2 years after that, but they still would be eligible for the program. It will be up to the discretion of Employment Connections, which historically has always been willing to work with their clients that come in, and knowing that a lot of people that also come to Employment Connections or second chances don't always have those proper documentation. So that is the word that I got from them, that they will work with everybody to make sure that these funds get to the people that need it.
Thank you. I hope members of the public heard that. So if you know some folks who are impacted and they're like, the last document I have is 3-4 years ago, let them know they can still apply, that the organizations who will be putting this in place will be working with tenants. We don't want anyone who's in need of the funds to not get it. So I just want to make sure that that's on record, even though this document says one thing, that we know that. And then the other thing, and I think this is really for the program managers and operation, is on the form, we ask for the impacted address. And I know that sometimes the impacted address may not be habitable, so the resident may be living elsewhere, and I just wanted to add a flag that it might be helpful to ask for their current mailing address in case there's any written correspondence to send to them. Again, I don't want to slow down this process. I think that's something I know just to raise to people who might be implementing that. I think it might be helpful to ask for their current mailing address in case there's any written correspondence that needs to be sent to them.
Yes. And I hear you, Alderwoman. I think there's which is a valid point. There's other ways that people can actually also contact them. On there, again, it says, please provide your email address or phone number, or alternate phone number. So if they don't have a phone and maybe their cousin got a phone, that they could be able to put their cousin phone so that they know that they are also, because they may not have a current address still as they looking for housing, that there are alternate ways for people to be contacted.
Thank you. It's still my personal preference to ask for an actual current mailing address. I know a lot of times people are displaced, but they still have another residence they could be reached at. Like I said, I think it's totally up to those who put it in place, but I still think that would be wise information for us to collect if they're able to provide it. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, I'll accept the motion. You have any closing remarks?
Again, just I want to thank all departments and alders who brought some concerns. As we talk about, again, putting things out there on the public, I want to be very clear that as this application is moving and that the HUD's committee accepting this today, the program is still being set up. So please work and be patient with the city and as Employment Connection is working with Department of Human Services to make sure that this program is set up. As soon as it's set up, I know the city and Employment Connections will make sure through a lot of us who work with Employment Connections and through other channels that they get the word out that this program will be up and running as soon as possible. And with that, I would take the committee's favorable consideration on the application.
Thank you, Alderman Aldridge. I'll accept the motion that we approve the impacted tenants form application.
So moved.
Second.
It's moved by Vice Chair Sonnier, seconded by Alderwoman Keys,
Previous row.
with the call for previous roll by Alderman Aldridge, with no objection. So we have approved the impacted tenants form application. Madam Clerk, is there any written testimony?
We have none.
Has anyone make any further announcements?
I just want to acknowledge that many of us are wearing pink today, and I don't know why.
All right, all members were, I'm sorry, all members were present this morning, so we don't have to excuse anyone. So with that, I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
Second.
It's moved by Vice Chair Sonnier and seconded by Alderwoman Keys with a call for previous roll. We are adjourned. Everyone have a blessed day.